Hey guys, what's up? It's Kaplan, a professional Valorant player, formerly the in-game leader for Space Station Gaming, and now a free agent looking into coaching and player opportunities. And I wanted to use some of my free time to create educational content. And today I wanted to create a video about playing defense on Bind. Right now, defense in Valorant is really interesting. In my opinion, there's a meta of playing for retake. Aggressive utility is very strong, so executing onto space is very powerful. Defensive and stall utility to respond to that with is kind of weak right now, in my opinion. So it's very smart for defenders to eventually let the spike get planted and then plan to retake that space and use their own aggressive execute utility onto it. And that's what I mean by playing for a retake. That's very common, as well as the fact that I think these sites have pretty weak defensive positions a lot of the time, which lend themselves to this. But I think Bind is an interesting map. It's one of my favorite maps because the retake is much harder on Bind defense, so you have to play it a little differently. And just really quickly to look at it, if you're a defender coming out, you have to deal with so many angles, and then you have to take U-Haul as a key position, and you have to worry about bench. And then once you try to defuse, there's short and showers, so you want to win showers as well. There's a lot of stuff you have to do in order to retake it. And then if we go over to B, the same thing can be said. Let's pretend we're retaking B without any space. You have to clear all these angles. You have to deal with the cross. You have to clear all of elbow. And then even when you're coming out, right, there's a lot of cubbies and little double peeks. And even if you deal with all that and defuse the spike, there are people playing the spike from hookah and long. So really good, tight, close crossfires for attackers to play the post plant from, as well as good, like, far away post plants to deny defuses from. And because of this, retaking these sites is hard. I don't have the exact stats, but I would guess that the odds of defenders winning a round after the spike is planted are much lower on Bind than certain other maps. And the one other thing to point out about the map is that the rotate times are very long. The octagon rotate is not very useful with the teleporter. The short A one actually is. You can fight hookah and help defend B really quickly. But other than that, the only rotate is really just this really long walk through useless space of spawn to get from A to B. And these things combined mean that you want to be able to actually defend the site and stop the spike from being planted on Bind. That's really important in order to having a really good defending half. And there are 3 tickets to doing this. The first one is obvious, having more defenders at the site when it gets attacked. If you only have 2 or 3 defenders at a site, it can be really hard to defend. But if you have 3 if it's a small site, or 4 if it's a big site, when the attackers execute on it, you just have more power of stopping it. So using information to inform your rotates, right? If you're just guessing between A and B, you're just going to be running back and forth. That's not so good. But if you get some information, let's say halfway into the round, you have a player who peeks out hookah and sees there's nobody here, well, they're probably not going to go B. And your other B player can rotate to A, and he'll be at A before the attackers even execute. Or maybe you can drone or Sova air to do this. So using information to inform your rotates to be in the right place at the right time, to be stacked on the correct site when it gets attacked, is really important. And another way to do this is controlling the map. There are 4 key pieces of map control here. Map control is good on every map, but it's really good on Bind for defense. And that's octagon, hookah, U-Haul, and showers. Showers is good. Attackers really want it because it's the easier orb for them to get. They can stick the orb while a player holds, and it's probably the best part of the map to just clear angles and poke into. Whereas if you're defense and you control this, you're denying the orb, and then if players try to plant, you can come out and deny it, and then if they try to play post plant, you are just cutting off all of the space, which makes your retake easier. The same thing with U-Haul, right? You can get a kill as they try to cross out. You can fall off. And then if they plant the spike and they try to fall, they have to deal with this pinch, and they're missing a key piece of the defensive area to defend their post plant from. So both of them are good for defending the site and making the retake easier after the spike gets planted. And the same can be said about both B pieces of map. The hookah control is what attackers want to poke in, but if you're a defender and control it, and you can deny the flank, then if they try to run out octagon onto B, you can get kills, deny the plant, force them to plant in a weak position, and have an easier retake. Same thing with octagon, right? You can control this orb. It's really easy to get early on defense. You control this teleporter if you're here. You can push down for information. And then if they try to come out hookah onto B, you can kill them as they jump out and cross over. You can deny the plant. You can fall off, and then just control this pinch on the retake. So controlling these pieces of map really helps your chances of defending and retaking the site in bind, which goes a really long way. And then finally, I would say that ult management is a key trick. I don't think retaking is terrible in bind, but it's definitely not good. And ults let you cheat problems. What if you don't have information and then suddenly they're executing A and you have a bunch of players on B? Well, let's say you have an Omen playing elbow. Doesn't matter about this really long run. He could just immediately, teleport to backside and be helping his teammates. And likewise, let's say you're playing a heavy A stack and you're missing information and suddenly there's 5 attackers executing on B. There's only 2 players there. If you're Sova, you could just ult the hookah and octagon lanes, and suddenly you're contributing to stopping the rush even though you're on the other side of the map. So these are key ways to defend well on bind. Using information to inform your rotates and stack sites properly, controlling pieces of map that help defending the site and retaking the site, and finally using ults to either retake or defend a site too. So those 3 points will make your defense on bind a lot stronger. And now I want to watch the FaZe against Sentinels VOD from First Strike. We're going to see Sentinels playing on defense against FaZe. I think it's a really good attack game plan from FaZe. And I think Sentinels are an amazing team who play really well together, really good individual plays. They hold and retake really well, but they could have managed these points I'm making a little bit better and had a stronger half. And then as we dive in, I just want to recognize we can see the whole radar. We have all the information in hindsight. There are players who don't see the radar. They have to trust the audio, and they have match communications from teammates and things they're hearing. So we can't really get into their head fully and judge their decision-making perfectly. But I still think as we watch them that we can see there's things they could have done differently. And I think there's a lot to learn about defense on bind. So let's get into it. Okay, guys, so jumping into the first gun round here, Sentinels won the pistol and anti-eco. This is a big round to win, right? The team that wins it makes the other one broke, and you can kind of string some more rounds together. And Sentinels here are going to do a setup where we talked about controlling map space on defense. They're going to play the Omen and Cypher controlling showers here. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at the radar today. And they're going to give short up and passively play it with information with the wires. And likewise, over on B, they're going to play for hookah with the duelists. And Sova's probably just going to info play and sort of passive play and plan to fall off if he gets rushed over here on long B. So we're controlling one of the outside pieces of each site. And let's see what happens here. And we also see a really common default from FaZe, right? As Cypher soloing outside of A, and then you play B heavy and you try to fight for this space. It's a very common default in the game. And let's see how it goes. So Shazam is going to arrow and Raucus is going to arrow, and they're both going to break their arrows. And there was also a Roomba from Corey outside on hookah. So let's talk about this Shazam's decision to drone here for a second. He darted here, and it broke, so you know at least one is long B. He also saw a dart, so he knows at least Sova is long B. That's pretty useful information. And then they know one is outside hookah because there was a Roomba. The drone is really useful information gathering, right? And you want to kind of know where people are to be able to inform your rotates, like I talked about at the start of this video. Shazam's drone, in my opinion, is questionable. It's not terrible to do it this way early into a half, but I don't think he's going to find useful information. He already knows they're over here, and what are the odds? It's only been like 3 seconds since he darted, that they're just already gone. I think what's probably most likely to happen, and what we're going to see is going to happen, is the drone is just going to get shot and killed, and all he can really say is, okay, I darted, and there was a guy here, and 3 seconds later I droned, and I now know there's still a guy here. You don't need to find information that close together in timing. It would be more useful 20 seconds later if it was quiet. And likewise, we're going to see it happen on hookah. Okay, there was a Roomba, and then Corey's actually going to go up and shoot and pre-fire and make a little noise on hookah. And immediately after, Sick is going to Roomba back. And again, that's an info tool. They're not going to peek or make a play with it, so he's using it for information, but you don't need the information. The Roomba's just going to get shot by the guy that you know is there because 5 seconds ago he Roomba'd and 2 seconds ago he pre-fired into hookah. So both Roomba and drone are going to get burned here, and in my opinion, they're not really doing anything because they're being used too early to actually gain any new information. So we'll see Six going to send out this Roomba, and Corey's just going to back up and shoot it, and nothing's really changed. And then we saw over there Shazam actually droned, and Sova killed it, I believe. Let's check. Oh, so the Jet killed it, so he actually did end up confirming there too, but nonetheless, the drone quickly dies, and he's just poking with shock darts and jiggling. They're still keeping hookah. They're still keeping showers. There's nothing happening over on A. But I'm going to pause it. I think it's really good what FaZe is doing, right? So the dart got burned by Shazam, and it's not going to be up for another 15, 20 seconds. And he burned his drone, and Sick burned his Roomba. So there's a large lack of information gathering left on the B side. The only way that the B players can possibly get information now is by peeking with their guns, taking fights. Maybe they flash out, but they need to actually use their eyes to figure out information, or by FaZe making noise, right? Stepping or using utility. They recognize, I think, that the Roomba and the drone are both down, and there's this timing where there's no info gathering on B, and they immediately cut over to A as a response. Babybait does a really good job. He makes some noise here with Jet. He smokes the octagon here, which threatens that players could be walking up behind it and maybe exploding. So he's making noise and denying them the ability to look out here for information, which makes it even better for them to group A and even less likely for Sentinels to find information to be able to rotate to A and see what's coming.
Well, as of right now, I mean, at the right side of the screen,
and then he actually just starts to walk over as well.
I
notice on A, they're just continuing to control showers. They're just playing showers together. They're not worried about short A. So we've seen here real quick that Sick is rotating. I would consider this, we'll see him rotate. He's going to decide to do it, a gamble rotate, unless there's something I don't know that the teammates heard, or maybe they studied the VOD or something. To me, it looks like a gamble rotate, meaning I don't think Sick actually has any information or large reasoning to choose to go A. He's sort of coin flipping. They could just as easily all be here on long B and all be sitting here outside of hookah. And they can all be over here. So he's just kind of guessing and just deciding to go A. But we're going to see in a second here, Shazam is actually going to dart Octagon. I talked about how information is really important on bind to make sure you're rotated and stacked into the right side at the right time. It's a sketchy gamble, but the second that Shazam darts this and sees that there's nothing here, you're going to see the dart fully pulse. It justifies Sick's rotate. After that dart goes off, Sick can feel like, I'm not gambling. I actually know I'm probably going to the right place. They're probably going to end A if they're not all sitting outside of long, and then you'll see Shazam actually rotate too. So Sick makes it to about CT, and then Shazam's going to dart. He does it safely off the wall. See, it's pulsing outside the teleporter. And he's actually going to rotate over as well. And they've also smoked heaven at this point. We talked about the importance of controlling shower for the retake and for defense. And I like how they prioritize shoving this guy off, right? They're playing together. They use the paranoia. They just move Zachary away, and now they don't have to worry about it. And look, Sick has made it into the site because of the info that informed his rotate to A. He can get a kill. We're going to see them try to chase Sick here. See, he gets a kill. And then they try to chase, and they have this nice little crossfire over on this area. So they do a really good job. We talked about how showers kind of cuts off the site, helps you play defend and play retake on it. And it's just a super clean round from Sentinels. On this round, I want to talk about the final point that I made in the beginning, which is that ult economy and ult management is another really good way to bring yourself back in these rounds. So info gathering, controlling map space, and using ults well. This game is a lot about setups and where people play, and I really like that here we see Sentinels doing something proactive. They're doing a new defensive setup, and they haven't been losing rounds. It's not a reaction to what FaZe is doing. It's just new somewhat for the sake of new. As somebody who personally has IGL'd for a long time in Valorant, it's a really frustrating experience to deal with this. You make a call that's set up to counterplay their setup, and then they're just doing something completely new, and it throws off your confidence that you can have a read on the game. So they're doing a passive retake setup, which is implied by these wires and cams on B. You see the Phoenix is playing pretty passive. And then you see a Omen soloing showers and two guys over here. If Sova's here, it probably means he's going to drone through hookah, right? Because B is really weak on information, but he can find that information while stacking A in case they execute A, which is really powerful. And I also think this is a good example of how Sentinels have a read on every gun round. FaZe has been ignoring showers or just having a Cypher lurk it, so it's not really that greedy that Zombs is playing here by himself. It's probably just a Cypher who won't contest the smoke, and Ohm is a great character to be solo because let's say there are multiple players, well, he can just paranoia them or smoke them off and run away. I think it would be more likely if FaZe was close to ults that they would go for this orb and play heavy numbers. I can't see the ult points, unfortunately, on this overlay. It doesn't show me. Too bad for First Strike. But anyway, I like that adjustment. And then one thing that's really important to point out here is I talked about how retaking isn't great on bind. A couple things that doesn't mean it's terrible. And they have a Sova ult and a Raze ult. The Raze ult is really good on retaking. And Sick has his showstopper there. And then Shazam has the Hunter's Fury, the Sova ult, where if they're retaking, he can use it if he needs to deny a bomb plant, as well as the fact that if they rush the site and he's not there, it doesn't matter because he could just Hunter's Fury all the way to B from A. So I think it's a really informed setup. It's really smart, and I'm excited to show you guys how it plays out. Same thing, right? We see the Roomba and the arrow. FaZe is just conditioning. They're basically showing like this is what our B heavy default looks like every time. So Cypher goes ahead and breaks it so that FaZe doesn't think there's anything different this round, right? Okay, that dart broke. Obviously, they don't see a Sova dart, so that's new for them. I think FaZe could use the information here. This is actually important. There is a dart broken, but every single round Shazam has darted down. Now there's no dart and there's no drone, so FaZe can try to guess why is there not the usual utility being thrown. Maybe Sova's not here. It doesn't actually matter because Sova droned through Hookah, so they know he's here. And it died, and then Sova's actually going to rotate over because they're making a lot of noise over here. The shock dart is even more noise, right? They really seem interested in B, and they probably think it's light because they know Sova was over on A. And now we have a drone coming out from FaZe, which is even more investment to make it a B heavy setup. We've got a smoke going out. So FaZe is really poking the B site here. This is a lot of utility. And then Raze is going to choose, Sick is going to choose to rotate early. I think that's totally fine with the amount of presence being made, but I also want us to look at Zoms here. He's controlling U-Haul, right? I talked about how you want to control this space or this. He's picking U-Haul to control, and we're going to see how this goes. Looks like Shazam's holding a dart for the execute, which is really good, right? He's going to dart above long B when they come out. It's fully readied. They're just poking out. They're contacting, is what I like to call contacting. They're walking into the site, and they're not making any noise until they hit contact. And they hit contact. Sinatra actually, unfortunately, gets caught out. And then let's look at what happens here. I'm just going to break it down as it happens. Shazam is counter-ulting. Really good. We talked about how it stops a rush. And Dapper is making a play, so he's not really checking his camera. But we have this dart. We know nobody's out sight because this dart would be broken. And he could check the camera to confirm that. And we see Sick rotating. And Shazam gets a really nice pick. And they actually cancel because if you look here, the Cypher has lurked all the way up into U-Haul. And they've cut back. So a couple things to understand. If players are executing long B heavy, you need to be careful about rotating because they can really quickly just TP all the way around to A. And then something else to understand is I think this was an over-rotation from Zoms. I think 6 rotation was fine, but because there was a camera that could have confirmed nothing sight and a dart implying there's nothing sight, you know that FaZe isn't actually committed on the site yet, and they could cancel and they could lurk back. So it's pretty easy for them to get out. I think Zoms should have stayed U-Haul until we saw attackers on the B site, and then he could have just controlled the space and defended U-Haul and stopped the lurker from coming up and denied the plant. But we're going to see, this is a tough spot, right? We talked about how hard the A retake is. There's no control and space from Sentinels here. And I'm just going to let the round play out. Look at that quick TP from Baby Bay. He's immediately in showers with an op. Corey gets a nice pick with his ult. And then look what Sick does here. It's pretty sick, if I do say so myself. And then spoiler, he actually ends up saving here. But let's talk about that for a little bit. That A retake's supposed to be really hard, right? They have no control. There's all this space on bench and showers, all the U-Haul and short space. But Sick immediately made a ton of space with his showstopper. It's really good on retake. He pops the ult, the rockets, and he just runs right over to bench and clears it out and right into shower. Within 5 seconds, he's cleared out this whole chunk right here on minimap of the site, and the whole team can just focus on retaking short and U-Haul. Suddenly, what I think should have been a lost round because of an over-rotation from Zoms not catching this lurker is now very possible. Corey got a pick with his ult, so that's harder, and it looks like maybe there's some micro errors or struggle. I'm not sure what happened on U-Haul, so it didn't work out, but I think it was a really good effort from Sick to try to bring them back in. And even if it didn't work out, they had to Sova ult in order to confirm the 1v2 and make sure he couldn't win it. So this next round here, we've talked about information and how you can use it to inform your rotates. I think this is a good round to watch ShahZaM. I think he could have used Sova's utility much better. Sova's a great rotate character, rotate agent, because he can help find information to inform his own rotate and make sure we are stacked in the right site at the right time on defense. That's kind of one of Sova's bread and butter pieces of utility. We can watch how ShahZaM uses that, and also we're going to see the importance of controlling space. So let's just let the round play out. We're playing for hookah. We've switched up a little, kind of playing for hookah. Sova doing his usual thing on long B. And then they're going to play U-Haul and backside on A and ignore showers and just play for that space, which is fine as well. And FaZe is doing their usual 4-1 default here. With looks like the Ohm's going to work short A this time. But we're going to see the Roomba go out just like always. And we're going to see a Dart go out like always. And I want to talk a little bit about having a read on a team. We're now 6 rounds in, and I think FaZe hasn't switched much up. When you see the Roomba and the Dart, you can guess, okay, they're kind of running the same default they keep running. And I think that every single time ShahZaM has darted here, they've just broken it, and it hasn't been super useful information because FaZe is just sort of starting slow and spread and then resetting. So I think darting right away for ShahZaM isn't a great use of Dart. I think he probably could have gambled that they were over here at the round start and felt okay about it. But he ends up darting, and the other guy darts back, which just tells him that Sova's there and they're running the default. So if he had waited, he could have got the same information. And then he actually does the same thing with the drone here. You're going to see he's going to immediately drone it. Every time he's done this, they haven't reset, they haven't grouped yet, and it's just died and not been useful information like we talked about earlier. Same exact thing. That drone's just dead, and he doesn't really know a lot. It's not super interesting information. He does a good job peeking to kind of poke the guy off and know that he fell off, which is really good. He actually ends up finding further information. I think he made noise doing it with the shock dart, and Baby maybe makes a really good choice to go back after he cleared it. And they've actually already hard grouped A again, right? We keep talking about how the drone dies and then they just use it to hard group A before they can get info. ShahZaM tried to get info. Doesn't end up mattering because they're investing a drone into short A. Sova started long B, and then he went all the way over to short A with the drone. It's pretty obvious they're heavy A. ShahZaM bites, which is understandable. I think it's smart, and he comes over to A. Now let's watch Baby Bay here. He's taking space. He's controlling this rotate. People cannot go hookah to CT because he has this cross. And let's keep watching what he does. I think FaZe knows the drone probably made it obvious they were going A, and they use it to reset. And they haven't really made a choice on what to do yet. But they're leaning A. And then look at this. Baby Bay kills the camera. One micro thing to note, he killed it with a classic. You can guess that it's the Opper who killed it if they used a classic. Kind of a bold guess, but nonetheless, it's possible. And then he grabs the orb. So he's made some noise, and they've cut all their noise on A. And there's not a lot that can be done for information gathering on the side of Sentinels. Let's take a look at it. Let's try to break it down. They can't push showers. That wouldn't really make much sense. They can't really peek short. It's smoked, and even if it wasn't, he'd just be peeking into a ton of angles. So these A guys can't really gather info. I don't think you want to peek where there was just noise. You already know people are there. But when you're wondering whether they're going to end B, I think a play that could have been made here is Sinatra could have pop flashed out of hookah right here. He could have, if there was a bunch of players here, hopefully they're blind, he gets a kill or two, he falls off, Cypher's there to hold it or trade him. And otherwise he flashes and sees nothing and calls there's nothing. Because ShahZaM's in this situation where he's like, okay, there was noise A, but then there was noise B. Do I go back to B? Do I stay A? So that's one thing. And if he had drone here, he could have droned out showers, or he could have droned out short, or he could have gone truck and droned out through the TP. But because he wasted his drone, in my opinion, in the early round, he can't do anything useful with it to find information here. He does have his dart up, I believe. Let's check. Does the UI show it? He does have his dart up. So another thing he could do, like, okay, are they going B or A? Well, you could just dart anywhere if you have a set shot arrow. You could just dart all of these places and figure out if they're there or not. So ShahZaM can find out whether he should stay A or go B without needing to guess. But instead, he doesn't dart and he doesn't use the drone that he doesn't have. Sentinels doesn't do anything to gather information, and he just plays what I call rotate strike, right? He's ran back and forth between A and B twice now in one round. and it's not really doing much. He's just out of the game while he's running. It's just a guess from him, and FaZe is really smart, and they push at a good timing where he could have been rotating, and they push out, and they take A. They actually, unfortunately, catch Sick out, but nonetheless, they have a 4v2 with the late teleport because they manipulated the rotate, and Shazam could have done things to avoid it. We talked about the importance of keeping U-Haul. Look what Zombs does here. He gets a kill, and then he does a really good job chilling out. He stays alive. They don't really chase him down. He actually ends up giving up U-Haul, I believe, but I think he kept the space really well. And it was a really good play by him, and he used the map really well in that regard. And then they just have really nice spacing, and they hit shots. And they end up retaking this. And they win a clean retake. So it works out. But it was a 4v2 on A when it could have been a 4v3. And I don't think there's any good reason that Shazam ended up just guessing and going back over to B. There was a lot of things he could have done, or his teammates in Hookah could have done throughout the round to be more informed on the rotate and which site to stack. All right, we'll make this round a quick little rapid-fire one. It's nice of them to put the map in the middle here. It looks like a similar setup. We're going to play the short A space passively with the heavy showers. They're actually going to kind of curveball it by putting the raise here, which I don't think, when I look at alts, makes a boatload of sense. B is pretty passive and weak in this case, but you do have the Omen teleport, so he can teleport out. So I think that's proper justification. We talked about how on eco, anti-eco, you want to play together, and we see that they're playing for showers. But what's going to happen is a couple different things. Sinatra's going to peek out onto B, out of Hookah by himself. I don't think that's really a play you want to make against 4 pistols and a saved op. It's likely a guy's holding you. You're just taking a 1v1. You're going to give up all this Hookah space if you die because you're alone. You know they're always outside Hookah and they're room bugging it, so the info super early isn't really useful. I think what Shazam's doing is fine. I think darting early is fine because they're eco. But this is kind of a weak setup on B, which is okay. But Sinatra taking this risk, if he dies, Shazam just gets run down on. And then on A, we've got this quick rotate here, and we can control shower space, but watch what happens. Sinatra takes a peek outside of Hookah. The observer doesn't quite catch it, I don't think. But he gets really caught out playing aggressive on a setup where I don't think it made sense for him to do it. And he puts Shazam in a terrible position where Shazam just hard rotates over. Or he has to fall off, and Sick just hard rotates over, excuse me. And that's okay given what happened. But I think what should have happened there then is we saw another round where they split up on A. Why not just keep showers again? We've seen time and time again that when they keep showers or they just keep U-Haul and they just dedicate to one, they hold off these retakes and these site holds really well. So I think they should have just stayed showers, let Sick rotate. You got the wires to play passive, but instead they give up showers. They don't really have U-Haul space, so they could go get it. And it's really sketchy, and they're just kind of not really in either part of the map on A. And now we have this TP out, which is, I think, kind of a jumped gun on the rotate. All we've seen is 2 guys here, and I don't super blame him, though, and I don't know what the comms are like. But I think in this situation, had Dapper been soloing showers or U-Haul, he would have had a chance to hold off A. But he's just in the middle of nowhere, and he gets caught out trying to get in a better position. And then the round just kind of goes plus. So anyway, I think that was definitely a blunder of a round, and we'll go into the next one here. Okay, and this is the last round I want to look at for this half and this video. And here we're going to see a couple different things. Unfortunately, we can't see the overlay for the alt points, so I have no idea how close everybody's to their alts, except obviously I went forward in time and saw that Corey is 1 off of his ultimate with the Showstopper rocket. And, of course, Sentinels can check scoreboard and see that in the freeze time. So I think something important to notice, it's slightly off topic, but when you're calling and playing Valorant at this level, you can think through if a team is really close to an ult, if they're 1 off an ult orb, then something they might want to do, is try to gain that ult at the start of the round in order to make sure you win the gun round with it, right? It is a big gun round. If FaZe win this, you can see the money here. Sentinels is broke, and they have another eco, and FaZe is getting back into the game. So trying to get the ult point is smart. Long B is a really hard ult orb to get. It's really dangerous. Defense usually takes it at the start. Showers is much easier. So for Sentinels, you can think, okay, does FaZe really want this ult orb here, and if they do, they might try to go heavy showers. I don't totally blame Sentinels for not seeing that coming, but having a heavy shower setup to anticipate denying this orb would have been really smart, right? If they deny this orb and they greed this orb, and something like Raucus or Corey is one off ult, well, there's no way they can get their ult without getting a kill, which really hurts their ability to execute. And then something else to understand is we're gonna see them play hookah here, and let's just watch the round and let it play out a little bit. Talk time and time again about how I don't think the early dart and drone from Shazam are super useful on long B with how FaZe is playing. We're 8 rounds in, but we're still gonna see that the dart, and it dies. And he actually jiggles and holds the angle. The wire just got broken on showers, so that's information. And then we see Shazam drone immediately after he darts. This is like the third time now that the dart, it's more than the third time that the dart's died. It's died every time it's gotten shot, and every time I believe that he's droned after it got shot, the drone just died immediately after, and he didn't learn too much new. Something important to point out is FaZe. We talked about conditioning. I said how they always Roomba and they dart when they do this B heavy default. Neither of those things happened. They did not Roomba outside of hookah, and they did not dart outside of long B. So when you're in-game leading and you run a default that's really obvious or loud really early, it's a good and bad thing. FaZe can do things like do the dart and Roomba and immediately go A to sort of fake a default, but what hurts is if they want to do anything that involves the Roomba or the dart or Raze and Sova somewhere else, and they're not going really fast, well, it's going to be pretty quickly obvious to Sentinels that something is up. And it's even more obvious by this drone, right? They drone through, and they chase this kill, which they almost get. Shazam's going to rotate really quick off the drone, which makes plenty of sense, right? They haven't shown their B utility. They just drone showers. I'm assuming Corey wants this orb. He's one off ult, and he's going to get the orb. Sorry, Golden Boy. Didn't mean to mute your wonderful casting.
It's just like a big one. It's a big crosshair. It's a little bit bigger than I'm. It's a big chonker. Yeah.
And then this is pretty good from FaZe. So they've made a ton of noise. They know they've pulled a rotate. How could they possibly not pull a rotate? And then they're going to rotate back to B. I think when you don't see this utility, you can push in for deep spots sometimes on defense. So I think something Sinatra could have done is been like, okay, they didn't Roomba and they didn't drone. We saw the jet, but usually those guys are over here, and we know they're over in showers. Maybe I should kind of push out for a deep trap spot and play for some info. I mean, it would have been a risk, but the flash makes it kind of safe, right? He could just flash. It's really good camera to check it, but it's not on right now. You know, if he just flashed, he could walk down to a close spot. And another thing to note is even if Raze doesn't make noise here, if she gets the ult orb, they can hit scoreboard in the middle of the round and know that she was the one in showers because she has more ult points than she started the round with. So anyway, FaZe goes quiet, and we're back in the same situation that we know and love, right? Where FaZe has cut noise, they're playing slow, and then Sentinels doesn't have information, doesn't know which site to stack, and Shazam is stuck playing Rotate Strike. Whereas, again, if he had the drone, he could have droned out showers and seen if they left. He could have droned out into mid, but instead he just rotates because both his arrow and his drone, I think, are down. Oh, no, actually, he does have arrow. So, again, he could have informed his rotate, but he's going to lean over instead. He's going to gamble over to B. It's really important to track utility here when you think about the spots you play. A Roomba's always used here, but Sinatra knows the Roomba has not been used outside hookah because he's been hookah the whole round. And I think they also probably know that the Roomba has not been used showers because Dapper would have heard it. So this spot is not a bad spot to play by yourself. He's controlling the map like I like, but he has no setup to break the Roomba for him. And it would have been really impressive foresight for Sinatra to recognize, okay, my spot's not bad, but because they still have their Roomba, they might come back and Roomba me late, and if they do and nobody's there to break it, I'm screwed. So I should probably not play here because they have that piece of utility. And it does not go in his favor. Spoiler. Here it comes. There's nothing he can do except shoot it or gamble not to shoot it, and he's just left out to dry. And then they just kind of pop off on the other kills on B. Okay, guys, so that's it for me. Sentinels actually end up winning the half, 7-5. They played really well, and I think FaZe also had a great attack game plan. I think obviously it could have gone even better in Sentinels' favor with some adjustments, but nonetheless, really good game to watch. I hope you learned from it and found it useful. If you want more of this, if you have critiques, comments, different things you want to see, let me know, and I'd be happy to produce some new content for you guys. I had a lot of fun doing this and look forward to doing it again soon. And take it easy.